Ashton Jeanty's easy. The rest of the running back class just might prove hard to sort out. We've already got projections on the site for the top 30 in an intriguing group of running backs. We've got model scores for all the guys that matter. We've got prospect profiles coming out all the time. And we have 3 draft sharks ready right now to sort out the top 10. Let's get to it. Welcome to our first episode of April. That means we are less than a month from the NFL draft, and that's why we're rocking a 3-man booth on today's show. Matt Schauf, Jared Smola, and our prospect guru, Shane Hallam. We are going to be spending our next 5 episodes covering the offensive prospects in this 2025 rookie class. That starts today with the top 10 running backs in our rookie rankings. You can already find those rankings with projections live on draftsharks.com now. And if you have your Dynasty League synced to draftsharks.com, then you can find 3D value plus ratings for every player customized to your format. Those ratings will power your draft war room, which works for Dynasty startup drafts as well as rookie drafts. They will power your trade navigator and the entire suite of Dynasty tools. Like I said, just waiting on draftsharks.com to help you build and maintain a perennial contender in your Dynasty League. Today's focus, though, the top 10 running backs in what should be a very interesting and potentially impactful class. Number 1, Ashton Jeanty on everybody's list, running back from Boise State, 3D value plus of 78. Jared, that's way ahead of anybody else at the position. What's he got going right for him?
Yeah, I mean, the question about Jeanty is, not whether he's the RB1 in this class, it's how high to rank him in the overall Dynasty rankings, overall running back rankings. He right now is our RB2 in the overall Dynasty running back rankings behind only Bijan Robinson. If you look at our rookie model scores, Ashton Jeanty got the highest score since we've been doing it over the past 5 years now. He just barely edged out Bijan Robinson, 9.39 rookie model score for Jeanty, 9.36 for Bijan Robinson. So that's the level of prospect we're talking about. Obviously coming off the massive 2024 season, 2,601 rushing yards, the second most in NCAA history behind only Barry Sanders, 7.0 yards per carry for Jeanty last year, 5.25 yards per carry after contact. Like that'd be a good number just straight up. If he averaged 5.25 yards per carry after contact, I'll let Shane talk about, what makes him so good after contact. I think he has, plenty of speed. He had 9 runs of 50 plus yards last year. So he's a big play threat. Obviously has the awesome contact balance. The pass catching stuff, I think that'd be my one slight concern about Jeanty.
Should that be a concern, Shane?
I don't think so, because it was just much more efficient for Boise to hand him the football than to throw him the football last year, right? If you look at 2 years ago at 2023, he had 43 catches for 569 yards, pretty good stats for a college running back. So I think the 23 catches, a lot of it was screen and short stuff. Jared rattled off the numbers. When you're getting 7 yards of carry, well, why am I throwing you the football? Just hand it to me and I'll make it happen. So I don't have concerns with the receiving. I've been doing this since 2004. He's actually my 7th ranked running back ever in terms of my grade. It's an elite player that is almost guaranteed, I think, to be a difference maker in fantasy football.
Yeah, I think the only real question here is where he ultimately lands, just how much he's going to get the ball, just how much that team has available to throw it to him. But, should be a strong rookie, easily leads our class across positions right now. So we'll see how early he goes in round 1, assuming he does get into round 1. It certainly seems like that's going to be the case. There has been plenty of buzz around number 2 on our list, Omarion Hampton, whether he's closer to Jeanty than the rest of the group this year. And that kind of seems like where most people are sitting on him right now. Shane, is that where you would put Omarion Hampton, is close to Jeanty and with some separation between him and the rest of the group?
I think he's kind of smack dab in the middle. I think Jeanty can't miss. He's got the skill set. I think Omarion Hampton has a lot of those plus traits, but could, with situation and draft capital, I think may not be the RB2 after the draft, whereas I think Jeanty's locked in as RB1. So I think he's closer maybe with the next group. But, second highest running back in our model for Omarion Hampton, third highest speed score of those who tested, which is pretty impressive at 220 pounds with a 4.46 speed. He definitely has first round potential, an excellent receiver for that size. Usually those 220 pounders, we'll talk about more of them on this podcast, usually aren't the best at receiving and catching the football, but Hampton's really natural. He ran for over 100 yards in every game where he had at least 12 carries this season. And the NC State game, the rivalry game, is what sold me and him as RB2 of this class. He had 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. Tight game. They're just handing him the football, and Hampton was running to try to win that game. 8.41 yards per carry, 22 rushes for 185 yards. He has the makeup of a starting NFL running back.
Jared, I mentioned the high 3D value plus for Jeanty. It's 78 in PPR formats right now. Just by our default rankings for that format. 35 in that same category for Hampton. The next guy on the list is at 29. So it looks like by our numbers, Hampton's a little bit closer to the guys behind him than to Jeanty. Is that where you would put him?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say for me, it would take something strange happening for him not to be my RB2 post draft. I see the knocks against Hampton on tape. He is a bit straight line-ish. He takes a lot of contact. He wants to run through defenders, not around them. And you could say that's a concern how he translates to the next level. But I just look at the overall profile. Again, like Shane said, 221 pounds. He had the 4.46 40 time for a strong speed score, tested well in general. Then you look at the production, 1,500 plus rushing yards in 2 straight seasons, plus 67 catches. He had 73% of North Carolina's rushing yards last year, 13% of the receiving yards. Both those market share numbers were top 4 among the 31 running backs invited to this year's combine. So I just think big running back, athletic, runs and catches well. That's kind of what we're looking for in fantasy football. I think, he has RB1 upside for fantasy. Some of the other backs in this class do as well, but I think Hampton's path to that type of fantasy production is cleanest.
It seems like that's the case for Hampton on most sets of rankings at this point, that he's a pretty clear number 2. Whether he sits closer to Jeanty or the rest of the group, we'll see. The NFL draft will help sort some of that out. And the NFL draft is going to help sort out what kind of separation there might be between the next 2 guys on the list who were college teammates. We'll start with number 3, TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State, 3D value plus rating of 29 by our current projections. Shane, what should we like about TreVeyon Henderson? Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and throw out that Quinshon Judkins, of course, for anybody who didn't catch on, is the next guy on the list, also running back from Ohio State. Henderson, Judkins played on the same team this past year, both productive players, both sit at 29 and 3D value plus right now. So, Shane, what puts TreVeyon Henderson just ahead of Judkins, or are they just tied in our rankings right now?
They're pretty tied, but very different running backs. Ohio State did this strategically. TreVeyon Henderson was a 5-star recruit, elite high school player who committed to Ohio State and had that breakaway speed, that he's that home run threat, potential PPR machine in fantasy with how he catches the football. And Quinshon Judkins was that bigger between the tackles type running back. So I think for Henderson, it really comes down to fantasy, where we like guys that can catch the football, and I feel a lot more comfortable with Henderson doing that. He's elusive as well in short space. He's really tough to tackle head on cleanly. He doesn't take those big hits in an open space, just an absolute nightmare. You see him against Texas with that long screen pass that basically broke that game open at the end of the first half. Just great angles. It plays very smart. The one concern with Henderson is he a better 1B than 1A in the NFL? When Ohio State tried to give him all the carries, he ended up getting hurt. He had an injury in 2023. 2022, he fractured his foot, had torn ligaments, had to have surgery. So the injury concerns, if someone tries to give him 300 carries, that's not great. I think we kind of prefer in today's NFL to get him in a zone 1-cut scheme where you're going to throw him the football and get him out open. And I think he can do big things.
Yeah, and of course, even though we had more 300 carry guys last year than in the 5 previous seasons, at least, we still don't get very many 300 carry guys. So there should be plenty of room for teams to use what TreVeyon Henderson does bring. Jared, what do you like or dislike between TreVeyon Henderson and teammate Quinshon Judkins?
Yeah, I think what's interesting comparing these guys, obviously in the same backfield last year, is you had Henderson average 7.1 yards per carry last year, Quinshon Judkins at 5.5. Now, Judkins, Shane can confirm this, you're probably doing more of the short yardage, goal line type stuff that is going to lower the yards per carry. But we do have rush yards over expected per attempt to look at here. And TreVeyon Henderson plus 1.7 rush yards over expected per attempt last year. That led all 31 running backs at the combine. Judkins minus 1.0 rush yards over expected per attempt last year. That was dead last among all 31 running backs at the combine. So Henderson top, Judkins dead last. Even in 2023, Judkins was below average in rush yards over expected per attempt. He averaged 0.5 fewer rush yards per attempt than expected. So 2 straight seasons where he's kind of underperformed. I think I'm probably going to come in a bit lower than consensus on Judkins. And for me, Henderson is the RB3 in this class pre-draft. He does have, again, the strong rush yards over expected per attempt, 4.43 yards after contact per attempt. That's third in this class among the 31 running backs at the combine. So impressive numbers for a guy who, like Shane said, he's a bit undersized, only 202 pounds. That's probably the limiting factor as a pro. He's not going to be someone who handles a huge workload, but with that big playability, I think 12 to 15 touches per game for Henderson, could definitely make him a pretty exciting RB2 for fantasy.
Yeah, and they of course do have the differences in style, Shane, but that speed, that explosiveness for Henderson, even though we got probably faster testing from Judkins at the combine than most people expected, it seems like Henderson's the explosive one. And do you think that maybe that gives him more upside, assuming he lands in a spot with an NFL team that knows how to actually leverage what he brings?
I think for both of these Ohio State players, the situation is going to be a little more key. If Henderson goes to a coaching staff that can utilize that open field ability, not just the explosiveness, but I think that long speed, and Henderson has multiple gears too. He knows how to slow down, take the right angles, and he can hit that burst pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, Judkins did test better than I expected, 4.48 40 time. Maybe the best part of his workout was his 10-yard split was 1.51, tied for second of the running backs who worked out at the combine. That's actually was faster than TreVeyon Henderson by 0.01. Judkins had the 4th highest speed score of those that tested. His story, we all remember the fantasy rookie darling Zach Evans, that Judkins, as a 3-star freshman, outplayed Zach Evans and then ends up going to Ohio State, doing a lot of that short yardage work, the between the tackles work. I think against Michigan, they were trying to grind Judkins as much as they could, and it just wasn't working against 2 first-round defensive tackles. So I like Henderson more is because of that explosive ability. But if Judkins gets a lead role and gets a lot of run, then I think RB4 suits him well.
And who didn't outplay Zach Evans?
I think that fact has lost some luster over the last.
It has, but Evans was a college darling still.
Yeah, going back to the testing stuff though, again, if you look at relative athletic score, which kind of combines all the testing these guys do at the combine, and then also factors in their size, Judkins had the highest RAS score among all the running backs at the combine, 9.90. So that's definitely working in his favor. And then a couple more notes on Henderson. 14.5% of his carries last year went for 15 plus yards. That was tops among the 31 running backs at the combine. So again, that speaks to the burst and the big playability. And then 2 other little things I think just doesn't matter so much for fantasy, but coaching staffs are going to love. He's considered, and Shane, you can tell me if you think this is true, he's considered one of the best pass protection backs in the class, which is going to help his ability to get on the field on passing downs, obviously. And then he also had 0 fumbles over the last 3 years. So those are 2 things that NFL coaches are just going to like, and it's going to help him get on the field pretty early.
Shane, do you see immediate impact potential from both of these guys?
Yeah, I think so. I think what Jared said about Henderson, there's a play against Penn State where he blasts the lead block on the future NFL linebacker Kobe King, and Will Howard scores a touchdown on a run. So I think that immediate impact for Henderson, he's a guy that you can immediately get on the field on 3rd down at the very least. And I think Judkins too, if you're drafting him in the top 50, top 60, then you want this guy on the field with that athleticism to be able to, at the very least, get your short yardage stuff. So I'd be surprised if we don't see Henderson and Judkins have an immediate role, have redraft value right off the bat.
If you think that we are underselling Judkins a little bit versus TreVeyon Henderson, we have him 4th, so it's not like we dislike him. But if you think he's going to be the better Ohio State running back, let us know in the YouTube comments. If you've got feedback on either of those guys or any of the players that we're about to start talking about, we love the feedback. We love to hear from you. We appreciate you watching, listening, and taking part in these shows to that degree. Digs at Zach Evans aside, I think the takeaway there is to be skeptical of guys who have the talent but don't show it with production in college. And now we're going to turn to a couple guys where they had the production and then they have some testing that makes you question how to take that up to the next level. So first up is number 5, Kaleb Johnson from Iowa, who's a little bit behind the Ohio State duo, 3D value plus of 23. Shane, I know that Kaleb Johnson ran a time at the 40 that, some people look at as disappointing, but it was right at about what you were expecting, right? And it's not really a knock on him, is it?
No, I don't think that it is. He ran a 4.57 at the combine. I had him at a 4.55. So pretty darn close. To me, that's what was expected, what you can see on film from Johnson. And, the 40 time for him, he's not a home run hitter. That's not going to be what Kaleb Johnson is. He was a player at Iowa, like the typical Iowa running back that grinds and grinds and grinds those yardage. And their offensive line was not as good this season as Iowa O-lines usually are. So Johnson had to make a lot of his own, getting hit in the backfield or near the line and still picked up positive yardage. He's that running back that's going to, when healthy, continue to grind out that extra yard to get the extra 2 or 3 yards, right? And I think NFL coaches like that. You want that player on your team, even if he's not the back, though I think Johnson can be. He had a solid freshman season at Iowa, had some NFL buzz, then an ankle injury kind of limited him. So if it feels like he came out of nowhere, that wasn't really the case. He has that power, but I think there's a little finesse to Kaleb Johnson's game. He knows how to kind of shift to a different hole. I think he can work in multiple systems in a zone or gap scheme. Most NFL teams are running both, but you feel comfortable with him both ways. Probably my biggest concern, Johnson, obviously, is upside, especially for us in fantasy. Is he going to catch the ball? Is he going to be able to break some big runs? And he struggled against better defensive fronts. Ohio State, Nebraska, probably his 2 worst games were against the 2 best defensive lines that he played. So I have some concerns, but I think Kaleb Johnson was consistent. To me, on film, separates himself from the next group of running backs for sure.
And worth noting that all the positive stuff he did last year at Iowa came when he was basically the offense. So like defenses were keying on him and he was still picking up yardage at will. And Kevin did the dynasty value profile for Kaleb Johnson and, had a similar evaluation that he's basically fast enough that he had lots of production with the touches that he did get. Jared, what do you think of Kaleb Johnson?
I like Kaleb Johnson. I'm probably above consensus on him. I think pre-draft I would have him just above Judkins. Landing spot could change the order on those guys. But with the 40 time, the 4.57 at 224 pounds, it's a 73rd percentile speed score. He's not elite, but to me, it's not a problem. Then you look at the on-field production, 11.7% of Johnson's runs last year went for 15 plus yards. That was the 5th highest rate among the 31 RBs at the combine. So he doesn't have the, 50, 60 yard touchdown speed, but he has enough burst, or he did last year, to, pretty consistently break off those, 15 to 20 yard type runs. So I'm not concerned about that. Again, the production last year was massive, 21 touchdowns, 6.4 yards per carry. His yards after contact per attempt, 4.42 yards. That was 4th best among the 31 RBs at the combine. He was 3rd among those 31 in rush yards over expected per attempt. And Shane talked about the passing game stuff. Shane's probably watched 40 times more, Johnson passing down reps than I have, but just looking at the numbers, he caught 22 balls for 188 yards last year, 11.9% of his team's receiving yards. That was the 5th highest market share among those 31 running backs. And he was also 10th among those 31 in yards per route run. So I don't think we should project him to be, a 50, 60 catch guy as a pro, but to me, it seems like he can do enough to, stay on the field in at least some passing situations.
What do you think, Shane? Is he going to be a fine receiver for us?
Yeah, we'll be all right. It's Iowa. They refused to pass the football, and their quarterback couldn't throw it over 3 yards, so it was nice and easy. But yeah, I don't think Johnson. I don't watch him and be like, wow, this guy is inept at catching a football, right? I don't think Johnson is that type of player. Like Jared said, I think he has enough there. We wouldn't rank him 5 if he couldn't catch the football. There's enough PPR value that he's going to be utilized some.
And of course, Jared, speed score matters a lot. That's why it's a good point to bring up, especially at running back, because it's a whole lot different to run 4.57 if you're 225 pounds than if you're 195. You're just a different type of player at that point. Kaleb Johnson can run through people and has enough speed to get down the field when he's got the lane for it. The next guy, though, Cameron Skattebo from Arizona State. The question is whether he has enough speed, and Skattebo is a little bit behind Kaleb Johnson. His 3D value plus is 16 at the moment, so that's down from the 23 for Kaleb Johnson. A little bit of gap between our number 5 and our number 6 right now. Skattebo does sit 5th currently in our rookie model score among running backs. However, he's got a low agreement factor. So he's going to be a polarizing prospect here. Some people are going to love him. Some people are going to hate him. Some people are going to be like, I want to love him, but I worry about this. He's got a low agreement factor in our model right now. He's got high production. He's got low athleticism. PFF loves him. Lance Zierlein does not. Kevin English did the Skattebo write-up for us. And you guys know Kevin, it's difficult to get his opinions on players, even when you're asking him to give them to you. He, without prompting, said to me, Cam Skattebo, he's a blast. And then if you read the article, it says draft a lot of Cam Skattebo. So he's excited after watching him and looking forward to potentially getting Skattebo in rookie drafts. Jared, where are you starting on him before we get that final piece of where he goes in the draft?
Yeah, he's definitely a blast. He's a fun player to watch, a fun player to root for. And like, I think the exciting thing about Skattebo is like, if he hits, it's going to be awesome for fantasy because he has the 3-down potential. He has the size. He has the pass catching ability. Skattebo obviously coming off the huge 2024 season, over 1,700 rushing yards, over 600 receiving yards, 24 total touchdowns. So the raw production was huge. The advanced metrics are also strong on Skattebo from last year. He was second among the 31 running backs at the combine in Pro Football Focus rushing grade, 11th in yards after contact per attempt, 5th in elusive rating, 9th in rush yards over expected per attempt. And then in the passing game, Skattebo 3rd among the 31 running backs in PFF receiving grade, 2nd in yards per route run. So he was awesome last year. I think the concerns for me is, one, he did that last year as a 23-year-old. So, he's a 5-year college player, older than most of the guys he was playing against. And then just how he plays. And he plays such a punishing style. He's a freight train. He's going to take a ton of contact. So it's like, what is his shelf life? One, after taking all those hits last year, then all the hits he's going to take in the NFL. Like, how long can the body hold up? The speed thing doesn't bother me much. Like, that's not how he's going to win. He's not going to break off long runs at the NFL, but I think he's athletic enough that I think he has a real shot as a pro.
Shane, I think that my question with the speed is not so much, does he have the long speed to make big plays? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we can't count on that being a key factor. I wonder, is he fast enough to be a regular back, to get the opportunity to get those touches, to, even make a play a 9 or 10 yard pickup as opposed to a 3 or 4 yard pickup? Where are you at on Skattebo right now?
That's definitely my fear. I mean, he's explosive. The combine workouts, the 39.5 vertical, 10-3 broad is pretty good. And I think you could see that explosion on film. He has kind of an odd way where he slows down and speeds up when he's cutting. And Matt, I think that gets to what you're saying, where if he has to make a cut and pick a different hole or is in a one cut scheme and he slows down, now that 9-yard run becomes a 4-yard run as defenses close. And that's my fear with Skattebo. I mean, he's smart. He's patient. He lets the play develop. He rarely makes a bad choice in terms of where he's running. He picks the right holes. He'll make his own holes sometimes if there's nothing there. The broken tackles and his contact balance, like Jared mentioned, I mean, he takes those head-on hits. He likes to punish you, and that is scary from an NFL standpoint. You're going to get hit. Fumbles were an issue too. I think that's another knock. Like he is probably, of these top 6, I feel like the boomer bust running back that we could in 3 years not see Cam Skattebo getting a carry. Whereas I think the top 5 guys I feel confident are going to stick around at least for a little while.
He did not run the 40 at the combine, of course, which is an obvious red flag, especially because, at the time, I think he said he had a hamstring issue, but he also did the vertical and the broad jump. I'm like, if your hamstring hurts, you're probably not doing those jumps, pal. You're just slow. He did a private workout for scouts last week. Dane Brugler of The Athletic said that he timed at 4.65 in that and added, quote, right around what was expected. Like 4.65 is slow by NFL running back standards. It puts him right around 43rd percentile in speed score for the position. And some other guys who have timed similarly in recent years. And, this is the list of like the more successful comps, like the upside plays. Kyron Williams is there, who will, yearly now be the guy that you point to if you don't want to give up on a player who was productive in college and then stunk in testing. Zach Moss, a pretty good comp, 5'9", 223, a little bit heavier than Skattebo, but ran the same. Dario Ogunbowale, I mean, maybe that's what Skattebo turns into. That wouldn't be great for fantasy. Samaje Perine, 233 pounds. James Conner, 233 pounds. So those are 2 guys who ran similarly, but weigh 14 pounds more, which equates to a much better speed score for those guys. Stephen Ridley, Mewelde Moore, and then a couple guys who ran 4.64, James Robinson, Ramondre Stevenson. James Robinson's almost exactly the same size, 5'9", 219 pounds. Of course, he had that awesome rookie season for Jacksonville and then quickly disappeared. Ramondre Stevenson, it's been a little up and down. So like that would be a pretty good run for Cam Skattebo if that's what he is over the first few years of his career. But I think that kind of sets the level of expectation. And then what we're waiting to see here, Jared, is whether some team takes him in the 3rd round or whether he
Yeah.
goes in the 6th round.
That's the big thing for me. I'm curious to see where Skattebo goes in the draft. I think, and anything on day 2 would be a big win for him. I know we, as a group, have tossed around David Montgomery as a comp for Skattebo as well. And you look at his testing. So Montgomery was 222 pounds coming out, ran a 4.63. So, very similar to Skattebo. And to me, like Montgomery's like the upside scenario for Skattebo as a pro. Not a big play threat, but enough burst to where he can be an efficient runner and can contribute in the passing game as well. So I think that's the type of ceiling I think we're looking at with Skattebo.
Those are the top 6 running backs that you will find in our 2nd annual rookie prospect guide. You can get that guide for free, whether you're a DS subscriber or not. You will be getting a big update on that this week, including the top 100 prospects in this class. All you got to do is enter your email address and the guide is yours. And getting on our email list does not mean that you're going to start getting ads or even annoying daily emails from us. You'll just get occasional messages from Draft Sharks talking about new stuff on the site, fresh content, high value tools. That's it. So you get the free guide, you get occasional updates from us. It's a win-win for you, really. Number 7 on this list, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, 3D value plus of 15. So closer to Skattebo than Skattebo was to number 5, Kaleb Johnson. Shane, what do we like about Dylan Sampson?
There's just a ton of hidden potential here with Dylan Sampson. The Tennessee Volunteers, as we learned last year with Jalen Wright, is not a super running back friendly offense. And so I think Sampson's one of those players who has PPR stud potential. He's such a good receiver, wasn't really used that way at Tennessee. They split carries, but when you watch Sampson, I mean, the smooth movement, the one cut ability that he has is just, I mean, he looks like an NFL running back. He gets even faster on some of these cuts. It seems like he can just not lose any speed at all. He can run inside despite some of the size concerns. He almost is better running between the tackles. The 5th best 2024 best game receiving PFF grade. Like he kind of has it, even if that production isn't there. Has a spin move, has a juke move, He just looks like an NFL runner. I don't know if Sampson is going to be, again, like a lot of these running backs are going to be good receivers, necessarily be the guy on a team. But I think in today's NFL, with the running backs by committee having that second player who can get these big chunks of yards, get yards through the air, I mean, I think Sampson has that. I'm really excited about his potential in the right situation.
Yeah, we don't have very many the guys in the NFL still, even though, we're coming off a year where they got highlighted. Most teams have several guys. Jared, where are you on Dylan Sampson's chances heading in?
Yeah, I think I'm probably a little below consensus and maybe where Shane is on Sampson, at least right now. Shane talked about the untapped potential, which I think is interesting because Sampson is the youngest running back, at least among the RBs that were at the combine. He doesn't turn 21 until September. That definitely, I think, gives him some upside. Had the huge production last year, nearly 1,500 rushing yards and 22 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per carry. This Tennessee offense, we've talked about it with other prospects. It's just so funky how spread they are. Like you'll watch some of Sampson's tape and the all 22 angle, and there's it's like him, his 5 linemen, there's 4 defenders in the box, just some like funky stuff. So I think it's going to be a transition going to the next level, running in a more, traditional offense. And then 2 other things with Sampson, his advanced rushing metrics are just okay. He was 5th among those 31 combine RBs in PFF rushing grade, but just 14th in rush yards over expected per attempt, 16th in yards after contact per attempt. And then for a smaller back, he's only, around 200 pounds. He's not much of a big play threat. He was only 22nd among those 31 RBs in breakaway run rate, which is, runs that go for 15 plus yards. And then you look at the 4.51 40 time, again, at 200 pounds, just a 52nd percentile speed score. So, he's a smaller back that's not really going to win with speed. The pass catching stuff is interesting that Shane mentioned. I think he's going to need to do that to deliver in fantasy for us based on his size and just, I think, that speed.
Yeah, Shane, he's not too small to succeed in the NFL, but is he not fast enough for what he is, just body type wise?
I think that's the fear, as Jared kind of laid out, is you're getting a player who is more agile than fast, is more explosive than fast. When, you're not 210 pounds, when you are probably going to play at 196, the hope is that those things will shine through. So that's the fear. That's the downside. It's why Sampson's not a top 5 running back in this class, but still has that PPR potential. I could see him being almost a better fantasy running back for us in PPR than a real NFL running back, bouncing around a little bit in the league. But I still, with his youth, with some of the advanced stuff he does mentally between the ears, I do think that potential is still there for him to be really good.
I'll tell you who definitely has enough speed to succeed in the NFL is the next guy on our list, Bhayshul Tuten from Virginia Tech. Shane, I didn't know who he was before you put him in your initial rookie rankings, have since taken him in my best ball drafts. Then we saw him run a 4.3 240 at the combine. Now everybody knows who this guy is. So for anybody who doesn't yet know more than his combine testing, what should we know about Tuten heading into the NFL?
He's been the lead back of Virginia Tech for 2 years. He transferred up from NC and had solid production there. And it's always wild to me when a guy that athletic was playing at a small school, how he got overlooked. But that 4.3 240 time was at 206 pounds. He's not a $190. The 1.49 10-yard split was the fastest among running backs who tested at the combine. Everything else was great too. The vertical 40.5, et cetera. You can rattle off the numbers, right? But he's not only, you look at that, sometimes you think, 4.32, he's kind of finesse, but he runs hard. He runs strong. He runs between the tackles. He took a pretty good load, but obviously has the speed and athleticism to break the long run. He struggled as a receiver his first year at Virginia Tech, so his overall drop rate is pretty high, but he actually had no drops in 2024. So I think there was a steady improvement that I saw in film from year 1 to year 2 at Virginia Tech. Probably my 2 worries with him: fumbles. He does not have good ball security in the slightest. He just waves that ball out there. And I worry about his short area quickness. He did run the short shuttle 4.41, which is a below average time. He's definitely someone that's kind of one cut go, and he's not going to run around you because he doesn't have some of that footwork ability. So I think Tuten, high upside. I think he's going to need the right system. I'd almost prefer him in a place that moves a little more to gap style. Run to this hole, and Tuten's going to get there faster than anyone else. I think that's how he's going to win in the NFL.
Jared, what do you think about Tuten versus Dylan Sampson, who we just talked about?
I love when Shane's tape evaluation matches the numbers I look at, and that's definitely the case with Tuten here. You talk about the big playability. I mean, for starters, he had the 118.3 speed score. You factor in the 40 time and his weight. That was top of the class, 98th percentile overall. So super strong there. And again, that speed, you see it on the tape, you see it in the numbers. 6.3 yards per carry for Tuten last year. 11.5% of his runs went for 15 plus yards. That was the 5th highest rate among the 31 RBs at the combine. And Shane mentioned too that he's not just this finesse runner. He does have some pop to him. 4.4 yards after contact per attempt for Tuten last year. That was 5th among the 31 RBs at the combine. He was 3rd among those, 31 in elusive rating. So he has some power and some wiggle to him as well. I do think, looking at the numbers, the pass catching stuff is a question, whether he's going to play on passing downs much as a pro. I think that'd be his limitation from a fantasy standpoint specifically. But Tuten's our guy. I like him over Sampson pre-draft. I think they're in a similar range as far as where we expect them to go in the NFL draft. Pre-draft, it's Tuten for me. He'd be inside my top 6 RBs in the class.
Of course, we're talking rankings here. We have projections for these guys. We have those 3D value plus numbers in there, but lots is going to change as we get to the NFL draft. And the NFL is going to do some sorting on these players. We don't want to reshuffle everything based on where they go in the draft, but it's a bunched up running back class where we'll see exactly who the league's excited about and who gets picked where. Like I said, we're going to keep going through these offensive positions throughout April. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or whatever audio platform you like to get our podcasts on to catch all of those prospect shows. Make sure that you're ready ahead of the NFL draft, because that's going to give you a jump on your Dynasty League competition in getting to know all these rookies. Number 9 on today's list, DJ Giddens, carries a 3D value plus of 13, just slightly behind Tuten and Dylan Sampson right now. Shane, it seemed like from your early rookie rankings this year, you might have been a little low on the Kansas State running back Giddens to start the process. Was that the case?
It was one of those, that I don't say missed, but I probably watched on a bad day. I think we all do that sometimes, right? You watch a guy, you're like, I'm feeling good. And I probably had him too low. And so being able to kind of reevaluate, especially after the combine, has been helpful for Giddens because the production's there. He's had 2 straight years of over 1,200 yards, at least 7 touchdowns for Kansas State. Was a workhorse, good vision. He doesn't take direct hits. Like you won't see him get battered around. He's not like Skattebo trying to take guys head on, but can still break those tackles. The 4th highest breakaway rate of the running backs at the combine. He has some of that deep speed as well. So good ball security, hasn't fumbled. He's just one of those players that everything looks good, but I don't think there's anything Giddens does that I'm like, this is special. He can be a special running back. I think he could be a good running back when he has to be in there. I think he could be a backup who an injury happens and Giddens is productive and we're happy to slot him into a flex slot. Some of the football IQ issues, he'll cut a little bit too late. He's a pretty heavy waisted knee bender. He's not really natural in terms of how he bends his legs, can play upright. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. And I'm not sure he's maybe capable of great. And that's my one holdback with Giddens.
How many running backs in this class do you think are capable of great? And I'm sure that that's not a count that you have in your head right now, but estimate, like how many guys do you think have that higher shelf that they can get to that maybe you don't think Giddens does?
I would probably say maybe 12 running backs, I think, have that potential. And this is a really good running back class. Like typically it is not close to that number, but I think there are guys that we don't have in our top 10 that have that capability, but have a lot bigger downside than DJ Giddens as well.
So maybe Giddens higher floor, but not as high a ceiling as some other guys in this class.
That's my takeaway from watching him.
Jared, where are you at on Giddens heading toward the draft?
It's interesting that Shane started lower on him too, because I think Giddens is someone who the numbers like a lot better than maybe the film does. Lance Zierlein from NFL.com, who I know we all respect a lot, he has Giddens as his RB24. And then if you look at the Pro Football Focus rushing grades last year, which is basically a grade based on his film, he was 21st among the 31 RBs at the combine. So not good there. But then again, you look at the raw production, Shane mentioned over 1,200 rushing yards in 2023, over 1,300 in 2024, plus 50 total catches over those 2 seasons. So he produced. And then, some of the more advanced metrics, Shane mentioned the 4th in breakaway run rate among the 31 RBs at the combine. He was 8th in yards after contact per attempt, 11th in elusive rating. So on paper, he looks good, but I do think there's, maybe something missing, like Shane was saying, that, might cap his ceiling a bit more than some of the other guys on this list.
Shane, I was happy to see you come up some on him because I noticed he was very low in the initial rankings. And then I started looking into his numbers and was like, what am I missing here versus his college production? So now he is up in that mix, of course, in a crowded range of running back that we're going to need some sorting from the NFL draft. The next guy, though, I think is somebody that it seems like both of you guys are more excited about. Shane, I know you said earlier today, I think Damien Martinez has stud potential. That's a quote from Shane. So now I'm going to hold you to it. What is it about Damien Martinez that has you excited?
He's produced from day one at Oregon State. He had 2 years at Oregon State and then went to Miami, 980 plus yards, 7 plus touchdowns every season. You watch Damien Martinez. He's a big back, over 220 pounds. Ran a 4.51, explosive, the 10-yard split at 1.56, really good at that size. It shows up on film. He gets the ball and shoots out of a cannon. When you have a guy that big shooting out of a cannon, he is hard to tackle. Really, really sharp footwork. He's not going to do much outside, but in terms of the short area between the tackles, he's elusive. I look at him and I see Omarion Hampton light. He's obviously not in Omarion Hampton's category, but I'm going to be able to get Damien Martinez a heck of a lot cheaper. 3rd highest 2024 PFF rush grade of the running backs at the combine, 11th highest speed score of those who tested. Probably the big knock is receiving, but watching him at the Senior Bowl and the receiving drills, and then at the combine and the receiving drills, which I love, is my favorite thing to watch because you're seeing these running backs back to back to back catch the same passes. He was really good. I don't think he's going to be as good a receiver, but it reminded me of Jonathan Taylor. Remember when he came out, everyone was like, he can't catch. He didn't catch anything in Wisconsin. Well, they didn't throw him the football. Cam Ward didn't have to throw Damien Martinez the football. He had plenty of receivers and options. I think Martinez has a lot more receiving ability as well. So he's kind of my pound the table guy. I'm a little scared of the draft capital. It doesn't look great. Like he's definitely going to go on day 3, but I think he could be that day 3 running back that emerges quickly, like we've seen with the Bucky Irvings and Tyrone Tracy's of the world last year.
And just to clarify for anybody who's half listening while doing dishes or something, you're not saying Damien Martinez compares with Jonathan Taylor.
No.
You're saying it's similar in that people worry Jonathan Taylor couldn't catch the ball just because he didn't do it a whole lot at Wisconsin, right?
Correct. I think Martinez is kind of the same way. I feel like once every couple years, there's that light bulb over my head moment at the combine where I'm watching a guy catch. I'm like, he can catch. I didn't think he could. And Martinez was that for me this year.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the actual light bulb over Shane's head in the background right now, which is, amazing. Greg Cosell also is a fan of Damien Martinez. And I would imagine that pretty much anybody watching this or listening to this is familiar with who Greg Cosell is, but he singled out Damien Martinez as a running back prospect that excites him in this class, compared him to current Josh Jacobs. And he specified current Josh Jacobs because he was highlighting the power with which Damien Martinez runs, saying that he does it in NFL fashion, like the kind of power that you need to have to succeed as a regular runner in the pros, maybe lacking a bit of the longer range explosiveness, but can probably survive without that, with at least, the level that he does have. Jared, where are you on Damien Martinez, who, Shane, you mentioned Oregon State, of course, finished up at Miami?
The draft capital is a concern for me with Martinez. We got the great Bob McGinn article recently on the running back class where he, polls some number of NFL scouts and executives on all these running backs. And Martinez was not even in the top 17 running backs on that list. So that's a concern. If he falls to round 6 or 7, maybe we'll have to reassess a bit. I like Martinez as well. I like to hear that Shane likes him. Love that Greg Cosell likes him. I like that we think there's more pass catching ability there, because that'd be the concern for me looking at the numbers. Again, he produced at 2 schools, which you like to see. Like Shane said, he was strong in the advanced metrics. Martinez was second among the 31 RBs at the combine in yards after contact per attempt, behind only Ashton Jeanty. The other slight concern for me, and I like Shane's take on this, is that Martinez didn't dominate the backfield in either of his last 2 stops. 55% of the rush yards at Oregon State in 2023. That's an okay number. Then 47% at Miami last year. Was that a backfield competition thing, Shane? Or is that, something where maybe those teams saw Martinez as someone who, just couldn't handle the full workload for whatever reason?
I think a lot of it was change of pace, right? I think where Martinez really struggled was rushing outside, and we saw both places bring in running backs that could do that better. So I think that definitely is, a concern. Like Matt talked about, we don't have the guy anymore on many of these teams, and I think Martinez certainly will be a 1A, not a 1.
We will see exactly where he lands in the NFL draft, whether he has worrisome draft capital or whether he goes earlier than some might be expecting. That's the big question at running back. We've got a whole other show of running backs coming up because it's that big a class. We're going to sort through some of the guys who aren't in our current top 10, but might wind up there depending on where they get drafted and what their outlooks show. Of course, you will find all those running backs as well as all the other positions in our free rookie guide on draftsharks.com right now. We've got updated mock drafts for both 1 quarterback and Superflex Dynasty formats. We've got a growing number of individual player profiles on the site. And of course, we have the most powerful stash of Dynasty tools in the industry. It's all waiting to help you overwhelm your Dynasty league and build a perennial contender, because we want Draft Sharks to be your unfair advantage.